Hello YouTube. Today we're going to go over systemd. You may be asking yourself, what is systemd? Well, systemd manages processes in a Linux system. All big Linux distributions use systemd, including Ubuntu, Red Hat, Arch Linux, which I'm using right here. Just any Linux distribution you can really think of. CentOS. Processes on Windows are called processes, or PID, and Linux calls them daemons. However, in systemd, we call them units. So, if you want to find out more about systemd, let's type in systemd or Systemctl-H. This will give you all the parameters to navigate systemd and everything like that. But I'm not going to show you all of this. If you want to read more about it, type in man systemctl, and it'll give you the manual for everything. But we're not going to worry about that today. Today we're going to go over how we're going to manage these processes, the very basics of systemd. Okay, so starting off, let's type in Systemctl List-Units. This will list all of the processes we have right now going on in a Linux system. As you can see here, there's some services right here, and that's what we're going to be worrying about, not these sockets or slices or targets. So let's go down to the bottom, and let's try to find a service. Let's back out of this and type in Systemctl List-Units grep.service. This will actually void out everything else except for the services, which is what we're going to be concentrating on. Look at all these services right here. Let's see. So now that we have these services actually running right here, what we do to see if the service is active and running is we type in Systemctl status, and then we type in the name of the service. In this case, I'm going to type in user@0.service, and it says it's a user manager for UID 0. And it shows you the status right here of the service. It says it's active and running, and yeah, gives you the status, the memory, everything like that. And so that's about it for checking the status. If we want to disable a service, let's say we want to disable the user service, let's just type in sudo system, and it needs to be sudo because you need to be an administrator or have elevated privileges to disable a service. So what we're going to do is type in sudo systemctl disable, and then we're going to disable the user service at 0.service. And we just disabled it, and we can double check that by looking at the status of it. So I don't know why it's not working, but usually it will. If we want to stop a process from running completely, we can just type in sudo systemctl and then stop, and then we type the unit name. In this case, it's user@0.service. Now we can check the status again, and as we can see, the service is no longer running because we disabled it. It doesn't say active or anything like that. So let's just clear the terminal here and keep going. If we want to see what processes or units have failed in the systemd, in systemd, basically what we type in is systemctl --failed. No units so far have failed. No processes have failed. But if they were to fail, they would show up right here. And actually, on a side note, if you go to on Windows 10 and you go to Runbox and type in event VWR for event viewer, and then you go over here to administrative events, it will show you a bunch of failed runtimes and failed processes that have happened within the Windows 10 operating system. So most of these are actually errors, but no system is perfect. The next thing on our list is actually Systemctl restart unit.service. So let's bring up the Systemctl again. So list-units, and we'll grep.service. So let's actually enable a service again because we stopped the user.service. Start. So yeah, we started the service again, and let's double check that with the status. So it's running. That's good. So now if we want to restart a service, just type in sudo systemctl restart user at 0.service, or any service that you are pertaining to, any unit you're pertaining to. So we just restarted the service, and we can double check that by looking at the status. It's active and running. The next thing we're going to do is try to find out if the service is enabled. So systemctl is enabled, user at 0.service, and it says it's static, which means that it's installed as a dependency, which means you would have to directly stop the service to actually stop it, and you can't disable the service itself. So it's static, and another program actually needs this service to run in order for it to run. Now, what that service is, I do not know, but that's what static means. And you can use this for a whole bunch of different services to see what processes are enabled and which aren't, and what type of service it is. So if it's static, enabled, or disabled, you can check the integrity of that here. And speaking of enable and disable, to enable and disable a service, actually let's use a different service, since you can't really enable and disable this one since it's static. Let's go back and look for services. Let's use this one right here. So systemctl user sessions.service. So we'll type in sudo systemctl enable, or let's type disable since it's already enabled. Enable system update utmp.service. I think I misspelled that. Oh yeah, I did. I misspelled it. So we disabled the service. We can double check to make sure it's disabled by typing in systemctl status systemd update utmp.service, because this is the name of the service right here. You can see it's active. So yeah, it still says it's active, so I'm just going to use a different service. I'm going to use an SSH service, so let me install OpenSSH real quick, and I will be back. So, Arch Linux was being kind of funny. It was acting up. I couldn't install SSH because there was something wrong with the Pacman library on that, so I couldn't install anything. So I decided to do the rest of this tutorial in Ubuntu. Like I said, many Linux distributions have systemd, so we don't have to worry. We'll just finish the rest here. So let's start where we left off and check for different services. So Systemctl List-Units grep.service, and I don't think SSH is running, so let's enable SSH real quick, and let's list the units again. I'm going to try to find service. Here we go, ssh.service. That's running. And just so you know, if you haven't seen an SSH tutorial, make sure to check that out on my channel. I'll provide the link in the description. But if you don't have SSH on Ubuntu, just make sure you install it by typing in right here sudo apt install OpenSSH server. So now that we have that out of the way, let's try to disable the service and go where we left off. So let's type in sudo systemctl disable ssh.service. Make sure you do sudo, because if you don't, you can't run it as an administrator and it won't work for you. So now let's check the status of SSH by typing in systemctl status ssh.service. You'll see it's active and running, but we have disabled the actual SSH protocol. After that, we can also stop the service by completely stop the service by typing in systemctl stop ssh.service, and we can check the status of that, and you can see that it's stopped because it says it's inactive. The next thing I want to go over is systemctl-failed, or I guess we've already gone over that. To re-enable the service, let's type in systemctl start ssh.service, and as you can see, we've managed to get the service back up and running. If you want to reboot the entire systemd service, you can type in systemctl reboot, and this will completely reboot the systemd service. So let's wait for it to reboot. Alright, so the system rebooted. Let's open up the terminal again. Right here. There's many other ones as well, like if I get my mouse in the virtual machine, systemctl power off, and this powers off the systemd service. There's also systemd suspend, and this just suspends the machine to RAM, so it suspends the virtual machine. There's also other things besides systemctl. There's also journal ctl-b. This shows journal logs within a particular boot. So if we were to type this in, it shows all of the journal logs for that. There's also journal ctl. Let me see here. -u, and let's do ssh.service because this is the unit name. This basically just shows journal messages within a specific unit. So in this specific unit, in this case, is the ssh.service. Well, YouTube, that's about it, really. If you'd like to learn more about Systemd, I'll provide the link to the documentation in the description. I hope to see you all in the next video, and peace.